So this week on the podcast, How Did We Get Here, we have Michael and Lorraine Hargadine. And you guys can introduce yourself if you'd like. And Maverick.
Yeah, Maverick is our special guest here, leading the way for us. I'm Michael.
I'm Lorraine.
And we have Liberty here as well, but she's probably not going to say as much as Maverick will.
Yes, the true third active guest of this podcast is Maverick. So you'll be hearing his input throughout the episode. So we know Michael and Lorraine through our church and local community, but they have a really interesting story of how they met and how they got to where they are now. So that's what we'll be getting into today.
Yeah. I actually met Michael and Lorraine on the phone through the bank years before I actually knew them in person.
So you know way too much information about them. Is what
I do.
you're trying to say.
Incriminating. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
What are all these overage charges?
It was actually really fun because at the time you guys lived in Dubai, and so I'd be like, what is this weird number calling? You can just see the caller ID.
Spam risk.
Spam. And I'm like, oh, and then I answer and be Michael, and I'm like, oh, and I actually remember that one time you were like, are you guys hiring?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know, had you moved back yet, or no?
Wait a minute. How did I ask you twice?
Just before we moved back. It was a while before we moved back. You checked
I think I asked you twice, and once was, I don't know, we were already back, and I don't know, I felt like the Lord led me on that, honestly. I was like, why would I do that? And I asked, and they're like, we don't have any hiring. I was like, yeah, told you, Lord. And then, but then, it was, I don't know, a year later or something, where I felt the Lord prompt me again to check, to call in and see. You're like, oh, hey, actually, this time we're about to have an opening. I'm like, really? Okay.
Lord?
So,
you're like, okay.
I was like, all right, Lord, you win.
So Michael and I worked together for how long? Like 6 months, a year?
Yeah,
Ish?
9-ish. We'll call it 9.
9-ish months at the
Nine-ish.
bank. So that was actually really fun.
Can you guys give us a brief overview of in this present moment, what does your life look like? So we'll start with the present moment and then we'll kind of backtrack to your
chaos.
Absolute chaos.
And what is the Lord doing in your chaos? Just kidding. So
Is that a question?
it is, but
It is.
you can answer
But
the
first
first
of all,
question
what is
first.
your chaos?
What is our chaos?
The chaos is a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old.
And a back surgery.
A back
back
surgery.
surgery.
Just
That's
life.
pretty accurate.
With babies and
Well,
trying to figure out schedules, working for ourselves, essentially.
I think that was, or speaking of Dubai and being overseas, and then we came over. I wanted Liberty to. We didn't know her name at the time, but I wanted our kids to be born in America just because I wasn't super sure how things were gonna go, and I wanted the citizenship to not be a thing. And I was like, okay, I just knew that if she was born here, that we were gonna be okay. And so I wanted to come over, but as part of that transition, or we were in Dubai, before kids, we were kind of established, and we knew, well, you were established, and you knew what you're doing and what you're wanting to do. And COVID just hit, so I had just lost my job. But when we came over to America,
But I had a super stable job
Yeah,
for 5 years.
yeah, you'd been the same company, and it was an awesome company.
It was.
But so we just came here, and so we kind of started it in chaos because it wasn't that long after we got here that Liberty was born, and she was born way early. And it's just kind of been chaos ever since. So I worked for my cousins. They were FedEx contractors. And, FedEx, the Christmas season is their Super Bowl. It's big, super busy, all that stuff. Well, of course, she came December 15th. And
Smack
we
dab
had
in the middle.
COVID 2 weeks before that.
Yeah.
Or basically November 30th, or Thanksgiving, we got COVID. We were knocked out. And then Liberty came early. And she was supposed to be born in January 16th. And so I did this great husband maneuver where I was like, hey, let's not worry about getting all the baby things. She's going to come after Christmas. I got this, Super Bowl thing going on.
I've talked to the Lord about it.
Yeah, I talked to the Lord about it.
Okay.
I got it on good authority that, January 16th is when she's going to come. So we're not going to worry about
And
getting
here's
it.
me being like, Michael, we have to get things done. I've got a list. We need to get, we have to get things prepped.
And I was like, we are way too stressed out right now. Let's not worry about it. It's going to be fine. Next thing you know, we get COVID. We're hammered. We're laid out for 2 weeks. Well, we were fine, but we just didn't, we weren't allowed to, at that time, you weren't allowed to, leave or whatever. But then we did that for a couple weeks, and then I went back to work for one day, and then all of a sudden we get to the hospital, and so it was kind of like that for like 3.5 years, where it's just like chaos. Things aren't going planned. We weren't established in our jobs. We had no establishing jobs here, and we didn't like welcome our kids into like, hey, we've been doing this for a while.
Like
we know where we're going. There was no stable home environment or job environment or anything. It was all like very much. Chaos is a good word. Like it was up in the air. We're like, okay, I think we're gonna leave, or like we're gonna land at my parents' house. And then, like, move on, like, pretty quick is what we thought. Like, a few months we'll be there.
We'll be able to buy a house in this place where things are super affordable, Michael says.
Yeah, I was like, because pre-COVID, like, Crumming was the not very expensive place of all of Colorado. Mm-hmm. And then I came back, I was like, did we go to Dubai, too? Like, there's, like... Dubai things were expensive, but then we came here and I was like, this is just as expensive as Dubai. I was like, what happened?
What have we done?
So then all of a sudden I felt all nervous because I was like, look, I was like, I did not lie to you. It was true when I lived here. It's just changed.
Was as advertised.
Yeah, nothing. That was a common thing for 2 years. It was like, this was not as advertised. I was like, I know, but it was that way. I promise.
Not even the weather cooperated.
The weather didn't
cooperate. Because Michael's like, winter is hard, but we have blue skies. And I was like, okay, I can manage that. Those first 2 winters were cloudy as all get out. I think there was like 2 sunny days. Probably exaggerating, but it felt like it.
Well, and then there was the longest storm that I'd ever seen, because it for 8 days in a row, or like a week after she was born, for 8 days in a row, it snowed and blowed. It was just like it was a howling blizzard for like 8 days straight. And normally we have snow for 8 days. We've had blowing for 8 days, but we didn't have both of them like without stopping, like for a microsecond. That didn't even happen. So it was just like super hammer time. And so ever since we moved back, we've never really found our stride, because it's just been always one crazy transition after another. Like I was working with FedEx, like I said, worked with Beth at the bank. Now I'm doing something else. You're doing.
I worked for a little bit.
Yeah, you worked.
I was a stay-at-home mom for 18 months, and then I worked for a little bit, and now I'm back into a full-time stay-at-home mom mode with our 8-month-old, who also decided to come early, and Michael was in Florida.
Michael was out of the state.
Again for one day. One day again, I left for one day. I got a call. I was like, uh-oh.
So what do you feel like the Lord is doing in this season right now?
Building our resilience.
Keep going.
I think it's been 3 years of building our resilience and flexibility and trust in Him, and even when things aren't looking the way we want them to, or the way we dreamed them that they should, I think we've just also had to learn just trust Him, which is not easy, and it's still a daily decision and struggle to trust Him for all sorts of things, like from finances to decisions about what we're going to do, to like my family still live in South Africa, so it's even trusting Him as to when we might get to see them again. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
So do you feel like, even like from childhood, Lorraine, have you always been able to trust what the Lord is doing, or is this a new level?
It's a whole new level. My family history is one where I've had to try and learn this lesson a lot, but it's been almost proven to me that I can't trust Him, and I've had to do it myself. So I've been working on that.
How did you grow up in a Christian home?
Yes.
And did you have any siblings?
My whole life. I have one older sister. My parents got saved when she was like 2. No, I lie, when I was about 2. So we've had a Christian life my whole life.
Yeah.
And you kind of mentioned this already, but where were you born?
I was born in Durban, South Africa.
Beautiful place.
Beautiful place. But my parents at the time lived full-time in Oman, Muscat, Oman. And then when I was 2, we moved to Bahrain, and I was there till I was 10.
Okay. And where is Bahrain for people who don't know?
Bahrain is a small little island off the coast of Saudi Arabia. About a 45-minute drive on a causeway across the ocean, the Arabian Gulf.
Wow.
I'll translate. Bahrain is Bahrain in American. Because when the first several times she said that, I was like, where is that? And then she was just saying it, and I was like, oh, I know what that is. It's just, you're saying it all like
weird.
like how it's supposed to be said. And like, Americans don't say things how they're supposed to be said. We say them in American.
Yeah. And Michael, where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I was born here. The Cumming Memorial Hospital, as it was, now Middle Park Health. So I was born here, and I was one of the last babies to be born here, by the way. Back then, I used to do births here. So where did I grow up? Here also. I did born here, and then graduated 2005 from West Grand. And then I ran around for like 10 years going to school. I went to Iowa for a while, or for 5 years. I graduated in 4, then I stayed and coached, and then I went over to California and did 3.5 more years there.
What were you coaching?
I coached volleyball, and then track and field with my college that I just graduated from. So.
Okay. And then what were you doing in Reading?
I was going to... Okay, that's a funny story. Okay, so I went for coaching because I was a pole vaulting coach as one of the things that I love to do, and I had this one student athlete that was a little bit of a challenge, and I was like, okay, my version was like knucklehead. I had a knucklehead pole vaulter, and I was like, man, if I could learn how to coach people well, I could be a good coach. And so I was like really into sports and I really loved it. It was really fun. And I was like, but I knew I was missing something. I was like, if I could know how to do with people, I knew the sport, I needed to figure out how to coach people, then I would be a much better coach. So I went to this school that had a really good coaching program. It's called Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry, which I did not know what supernatural meant. I did not know that at all.
Sorry, that's really funny. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. No, there was a program at my college that was like the youth pastor would like give college kids free pizza, so I was there all the time.
Yeah.
And so so I had to get a letter of recommendation, and he was like, "Supernaturals, those are scary. Like, this is weird. Are you sure about this?" And he was all like,
a bunch of weirdos over there.
Yeah, he was all like, "What is the supernatural?" Like, he's like warning me, like severely, genuinely, honestly, lovingly warning me. But I had no clue what he was talking about. I was like, my brother and sister-in-law there, I'm sure it's fine, you know. And then my sister-in-law was like, well, there's a coaching school program here. You should just come and do it. I'm like, why don't you just apply and see what happens? I was like, okay.
She totally played him.
She knew. So later on, a couple years later, I found out that she like heard from the Lord that I was going to be there, and she tried to, or like she wanted to just tell me, hey, you're going to come here, but Joe, my brother, was like, no, you can't do that. That's like not in the rules. It's not cool. And so she had to like pray and ask for wisdom about how to do it, and how to like trick me in, do the whole Jehovah's Sneaky thing. And it totally worked. She totally did the whole Jehovah's Sneaky thing. And I didn't really know what I was getting into. But yeah, but it worked out just fine. And then I was there for this really cool coaching program. And
It doesn't exist.
no, it does. I was there.
Not the way you thought it would.
No, it was not even the right kind of coaching.
What kind of coaching were you
It
taught?
was life coaching, which was actually also really cool. I did take that and I got like qualified in that and stuff. I was like, this is actually really cool and really fun. But it was not the kind of coaching that I thought it was. But I mean, Sarah, technically she told the truth because she said it's coaching people, and that is what it is. But it's not like, I was thinking more like sports psychology,
like athletic, pole
Yeah.
vaulting,
Yes.
maybe some track and field.
Yeah,
How to get people to run faster.
Yeah, how do you like help
Run faster
somebody?
after
Yeah.
they lowered.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. It was just kind of funny how I even got there.
So did you grow up in a Christian home?
Yes. My mom and dad, they got saved before I was born, and then the church was Christian, or like we grew up in the KCC, so our church or whatever, same church that you guys were just talking about earlier. And so yeah, I grew up there.
And you have siblings?
Yes, I I have one in heaven, lucky dog. He made it there. He's got no more pain or anything like that. And my other brother Joe is in Meade, it was like Denver area ish, and he comes up pretty frequently. So we get to hang out still, which is cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've lived in Kremlin, Iowa, California, Dubai. Where else?
I don't think you've lived anywhere else, but you've traveled a lot of places.
Were you in Mexico for a while?
Oh, I don't know. It depends on how you count living. I lived there for a summer.
I would
Not
count
really.
that as living
Is that
there.
living there?
Like
Okay.
anything more than a month or 2 months, I would count as living somewhere. For a
Okay,
while.
then technically I would have lived in Mexico between my first year at Bethel and my second year there.
So with all the places you guys have both lived, what are similarities and differences like in Kremlin versus the other places?
Okay, well, I've pretty much lived tropical or desert my whole life. So Kremlin
Now you're in the Arctic.
right next to
Yes.
the ocean, everywhere. And now I'm literally in the mountains.
Landlocked.
Landlocked in the mountains, where it gets
3,000 kilometers from the nearest
ridiculously
ocean.
cold, unfairly cold.
Which would you prefer, beach or mountains?
Well, being from South Africa, I can have both.
True. When
In
you're
the
from
same
Durban,
place.
it's kind of hard to
Yeah,
compete.
2 hours away, I got mountains and ocean right there. So
Okay, Colorado mountains or ocean?
Colorado mountains are beautiful. I don't know. I would snowbird if it was my choice.
Mm.
I would totally snowbird.
What do you prefer, Michael?
I don't like the cold. I don't like it at all. I don't understand why people moved here in the first place. But I was just born here. I didn't have a choice. So
He moves his whole family back.
Yeah.
It's fine.
No,
we
it's
lived
terrible.
in the tropical desert, right on the beach,
Yeah, no, that was awesome.
and
I
we
would-
moved back to Kremlin.
Well, we moved here for people though because
Yeah.
our family. When we were in Dubai, especially with COVID hitting, and you're just stuck
I see
there,
that
and
too.
and so many of our friends had to leave Dubai because of like it just shook the economy so much that a lot of them had to
a
go.
lot of businesses were shutting down.
Yeah, a
People
lot of-
lost jobs.
Yeah, it was a pretty.
You can't be there if you don't have a job, really.
Yeah, definitely not legally. Well, I guess you could do visa
not
runs. You can do visa runs. People do visa runs. Anyway, but it was a lot. It just kind of shook it, and then we were like, man, we just really realized like, hey, family really matters, and it's super important to us. I also lost Toby, my brother, and so at that point we're like, man, like, why, like, what are you doing if you're not hanging out with family? And so we were like, we want to go hang out with family and be close to
And
the
Michael
people
has,
that we're going to be with for a long term, not just like a season in Dubai or whatever.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure. I mean, I was pretty confident that both the kids, because Michael was obviously born and raised, he's a citizen. I was pretty confident that the kids' citizenship wouldn't be a problem. But Michael also has the larger family, so that's why we picked Colorado over South Africa.
Well, before we started dating before we got married, I was like, "Can you see yourself living in America?" And you're like, "Yes."
Yes.
And I was like, "Okay, so we can go to Dubai for a little bit, and then we'll go back."
then I'm
to
going back.
America.
So I know that you guys were in Dubai together, and I still don't even know really what the timeline was on all of that. But let's backtrack a little bit to when you guys, or right before you guys met, and what that looked like.
My question was, before you guys met, were you looking for a spouse?
No.
Oh, wow, that was
Straight
so
up
immediate.
no. Straight up no.
In that moment, no.
Michael?
Yes, I was for sure.
I was
Yeah.
open to it, but I wasn't actively looking. In fact, yeah.
So Michael, what were you looking for before you found Lorraine?
What was I looking for? Well, okay, I had been looking for a long time, because by the time we met, it had
we
been.
were in our 30s.
We were met when we were 30, but yeah, so I was out at that Bethel, like I kind of like took a season to just get my identity squared away because it was in like sports and not in Jesus-y goodness. So I just took some time to like do that, and I wasn't at that time. But then basically from 24 on, I was like looking for a spouse, and we didn't meet till we were 30. And so I was like, let me see here. I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know how to look for what it should look like. I heard like like all of my friends, like you hear all those testimonies like make a list, get rid of the list, make a list, get rid of the list. So make the list, make it more specific, get rid of the list.
Make a list, turn it back on yourself. Are you all those things on the list?
Yeah, it's like there's a million things like list wise you need to do, and I don't know. It seemed to work for a lot of people, but it didn't work for me ever. Like I did it, and I'm sure I did it right, but it didn't really work out. So I don't know. I don't know what I was looking for because I did the list so many times and it changed every time, and I was like, okay, it seemed to be like depending on where I'm at, what phase I'm in or whatever, what I'm going through. I kind of look for different stuff. Mm-hmm. But so yeah, but I know that what I needed was different than what I was looking for. Because I didn't really know. I don't know how that worked out, but I know that when I thought I asked myself this question. Because there's a lot of pressure when like, is this the one? It was like, I don't know. Like that's super highly charged and pressure. But I remember thinking or asking myself, I was like, can I say yes to Lorraine for the rest of my life? And when I asked that question, I found rest. Like my search was over. I found rest. I was like, yes, I can say yes to her for the rest of my life. Because it's like, especially as a guy, you're kind of like pursuing, looking, searching, or whatever. And when I finally, that was the bit that kind of did it for me to know that Lorraine was who I wanted to marry.
The one.
Yeah, asking the one, not helpful for me. But I was like, can I say yes to her, like in hardship and in goodness and hardship and all those things? I'm like, actually, yeah. Like I thought about it in good, and I thought about it because we just we did a lot of long distance stuff, but it was a lot of one-on-one because it was like Skyping or whatever. And I knew that we would be able to solve problems as they came up, or talk through things and figure things out. And it just, there was something so energizing and life-giving after talking to Lorraine. Like, I just felt like I was a better person, And anyway, it comes back to that whole, like, can I say yes? And that's when the rest came. I was like, okay, cool.
Lorraine, you said you weren't looking?
No, I wasn't.
But did you know what you wanted?
I knew what I didn't want more than what I wanted.
What did you not want?
She had a list.
Pull it up.
It's too long of a list to really go into. I knew I wanted someone whose heart was after the Lord. That was the main thing. Family oriented. But again, I think Michael said that, like, you know what you want, or you might have a list of what you want, but it might not necessarily be what you need. And Michael has aspects of both that I've realized. Like, there are aspects of him that I wanted, but there are also things that I thought I wanted that he doesn't have. I'm like, actually, that just doesn't matter. But he's got so many aspects to him that I do actually need, as much as that is difficult to navigate when what you need is to be told you're wrong. You need to process through something, or like, hey, maybe you should look under the hood about that. No one wants to be told, let's work on this together. And I mean, there's good things that he has that I didn't know I needed either. Like, Michael makes it safe for me to feel like I can be myself and be like a bit more happy-go-lucky and fun, whereas living by myself in Dubai for so long, I kind of was like, I got this. I gotta put on a face and can't really let people in because I just gotta get it done.
So at the point that you guys met, where in the world were each of you?
I was in Dubai. I'd been there since 2013 and we met 2017.
And what were you doing in Dubai in that time?
So I was working for a renovations company, managing the design team, doing design myself, helping manage projects, that sort of thing.
And where were you, Michael?
I was here in Kremling. Yeah. I think that was like the fourth time I was working for FedEx.
Nice.
Because I would work for FedEx and I'd go, and then I'd come back and I'd work for FedEx and I'd go do something else. And then.
So, if you guys were on opposite sides of the world, essentially, how in the world did you meet?
Yeah, okay. Good question. Well,
Who's season, okay?
So at that time, our church, like the next closest like people in age to me were like my parents.
Sorry, I'm laughing because I know this time in the church.
This time in the church, it was kind of a rough time in the sense of young people we're not there. Anybody below 60 wasn't really in the church, and so I was like, and I knew, like, I was born here, I knew people here, and I knew, like, there was not a single girl within 5 years above me or below me in age.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, so if I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna have to, when I find somebody, I have to go online. And it was funny because our stories are hilariously different in this regard. So I went on day 6 again.
And what is day 6?
On day 6 was a Christian. It was Bethel's. Well, time out. It started as Bethel's Christian website dating platform thing. Yeah, and
you were actually there when they developed it and launched it.
Yeah, I went to their first launch. Like, hey, we're gonna do this launch thing. So they told us about it.
I volunteer as tribute.
Well, I didn't until later. I volunteered as tribute, and it was fun because I knew the owner of it. I didn't know that I knew them. I didn't know that they owned it at the time. But we had actually gone on a ministry trip to LA, and then she actually found her husband on there, and then she ended up buying it, and then so I knew her, and so she hooked me up with a good, whatever it's called, featured profile or something. And so I got to be
this was one of the first pictures you saw on the startup page.
Yeah.
Michael's front and center.
Yeah, twice. So the first time I did it, and then I was a featured member or whatever, and then 3 years later I did it again. I wasn't featured, and another 3 years later I did it again, and she featured me. So that was kind of fun.
So Lorraine, how did you end up on day 6?
My story is a little bit more involved. So I had had a season of trying to figure myself out and some things going on, and then for my 30th birthday I was like, I'm gonna gift myself something in America. I'm gonna buy myself a ticket, we're gonna go something. And I was looking to see what events Bethel had, just because our church at the time was connected to Bethel. The pastors were friends, and so I was like, I'm gonna go there. I had another friend who'd moved from Dubai back to California. She was from California, so I was like, I can go visit her afterwards. And they didn't really have very much going on. And then I saw this advertisement for a conference, a 3-day intensive conference called the Single Life Workshop. And the first thing that I remember reading when I looked at what the details were is this is not a meat market. So I was like, okay, that's a little bit more appealing, because I was not interested in a relationship at that time. Anyway, I looked into it. I ended up buying it for myself for my birthday, and I came out here and I did that. And it's just about how to do relationships well, and vulnerabilities, and being able to be open with who you are and be vulnerable and build good relationships and communication and all of that. So I did that 3-day intensive, and then that was August of 2016, and I got back to Dubai, and the one pastor pulled me aside. I was doing some leadership of what we called equip groups, which are basically little training groups. So we did course material with small groups, and he pulled me aside, and he was talking to me about a different one that we were doing together, and I was leading. And he's like, well, I didn't actually ever ask you, why did you go to America? What did you do? And I hadn't told anyone, because as soon as you hear you're going to a singles workshop, everyone's like, oh, you're going to go meet somebody? Anyway. So I explained it to him, and he looks at me and he's like, I wanted to bring that to Dubai. If I bring it, can you lead it?
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And because of cultural things over there, the course is designed to be both genders at the same time, and your small groups that you get put into are both genders. But for cultural reasons, we started just with women in Dubai. And so I was prepping to start that in February of 2017. And one of the challenges that they come up with is, what does risk look like to you? And it can look different for different people. The one person that they use as an example is they wouldn't even smile or give eye contact to the opposite gender, because that was just anxiety producing. And so to bring healing in that area, the Lord challenged her. Risk looks like even saying hello or smiling to someone as you walk past. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to ask these women to take risk and see what that looks like. I better do that in order to be able to ask them to do it. And when I checked in with the Lord, he was like, go on day 6. I was like, okay, and I went on there. There's a free profile thing that you could have done. So I did that, and I just played around and and he's like, nope. I was like, check the box. And he's like, nope, make a profile. So I did, okay, made that, check the box. No, actually, like, sign on so you can contact, because you have to subscribe to actually make contact with anyone. So I was like, what's the cheapest option? I think it was like a 2-week or 1-month access or something. So I was like, okay, check. No, Lord was like, you have to actually make contact with somebody.
Wow.
And I was like, really? Like, I don't even want anyone to respond. Anyway, so basically you go on there and you shop profiles and you see. And,
sorry, I'm just laughing because I see Michael's face featured on the front. Just kidding.
It was actually a really good picture. There was a picture on there, I remember, he has his face covered in cream and he's laughing.
That's right.
Because I don't know what it was, but must have
It
been
was a
like
pie eating contest in like another church, a
That
different
is so
church in
Michael.
Colorado.
If you know Michael,
We might
eating
need
pie,
this picture for podcast purposes. So just
It's
find
pretty
it after
funny.
this,
It's
please.
hilarious.
Eating pie. It
Well,
was
but
just,
it wasn't just eating pie. It's no like face plants, splash, like whipped cream everywhere kind
Yeah.
of an image. So
So I saw that and
I
don't
saw
know
that and fell in love.
it's like this
No,
guy
I was like,
likes
he's
pie.
cute. I was like, he's cute. And I read his bio and everything, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not actually interested. He's like in the States. Like, what would that even look like? And I wasn't pursuing anything. So I was like, okay, I don't know if anyone remembers the old Facebook pokes.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
So
Oh my gosh.
on day 6 version of that was a wink.
yeah. Oh my
And so
gosh.
I winked at him, and I was like, I am done. And I did it. I'm like, look, I ain't asking you no more questions. So, and then 2 days later, he
winked back at you?
actually sent a message. There was an online messaging portal on there that ended up not working right. And we ended up just exchanging emails afterwards. And about 2 weeks in, he's like, hey, can we FaceTime or can we Skype? And I was like, not yet.
You're like, nah, I don't really want to see your face.
Not yet. And so he had to wait another 2 more weeks.
Yep.
And then after we Skyped the first time, it was every single week.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
our third Fridays
The Friday.
because it was Thursday night for me and Friday morning for her.
Oh.
So, and Fridays they were off in
Yeah,
Dubai.
Dubai's weekend was Friday, Saturday.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't know that for a while, but it was funny because like, man, it's like, because we would Skype for a long time, and I was like, man, it's like 9 a.m. there, 10
You're like,
a.m.
doesn't
there.
she work?
I was like, man, like whoever her boss is super cool. 'Cause she's just like super late.
What you didn't realize is that is actually my life there. My boss was super cool.
No, I did. I realized that later. Yes, I found out, but yeah.
I'm just picturing you sitting in Crumling, like, Skyping Lorraine in Dubai. Like, what was going through your mind as you're, like, talking to this person who's across the world?
Well, you have a fun story about seeing my profile before I saw you.
I did. So, well, okay. Oh dear, did I say that though?
You did.
Okay. All right. So,
Oh,
man.
interesting.
Okay, this is hard, but so when I first saw her picture, like super cute, super candid, super real, and super pure, super innocent. Like there's all these like super attractive qualities. And I was like, man, like, you know, I was like, man, I would love to talk to her. But I was like, but then I saw like, you know, I read a little bit, like you kind of try to like figure out what's going on, where the profile is. And then I saw she was in Dubai. And I was like, oh, crap. I was like, that's so far over there. And, well, the real issue was, I was like, man, Dubai usually is, or like, I know some people who live there, gone there and stuff, and I was like, Dubai is usually associated with having some money, having some dollar bills, or dirhams in that case, or like having a career, being established, being kind of like set up. And I had already pursued a girl who said no, because she was like, no, I'm ready to like, I want somebody who's established and who has like, you know, money and can like support us and as a family, you know. And I was like, that's not gonna work. So I knew that like financially I was like not anywhere close to what somebody would like, you know, what I would imagine living in Dubai would be open to. And so I was like, oh man, that was cool to like dream for a little bit. I was like, yeah, never mind. And then she messaged me too. I was like, okay, fine.
It took about 0.2 seconds. You're like, okay, all right.
I was like, let's talk. So
you're like, how much money can I get right now?
I was like, but yeah, I think I don't know. Actually, I don't remember my profile, what it said. I was like, I'm working. My profile said like, hey, I'm working for
You were
FedEx.
a kingdom seeker.
That was my name, Kingdom Seeker.
But yeah, also the photos that Michael put up, like looking at some of the other profiles, you know, the guy's like flexing and
you're like, here's
in front of
Michael
the
with some pie on his face.
And I loved it. And another one was one of the mission trips, I think, in Mexico, and he was with the kids, and he was just had this huge smile on his face, and his eyes was like his photos were like just natural and unstaged, and that's something I really liked too. Like, there was no pretense or like, look at me, I'm macho kind of thing.
No, I knew I had to have me looking like a goober on there somewhere, because I was like, if whoever does end up with me, they should know that right away.
It's got to be accurate.
It's got to be. They got to know they're signing up for kind of a goober, little bit of a weirdo, but little fun, little bit of, you know, a bunch of different things. But yeah.
So would you consider your Skype dates? Like, were you dating at this time?
Well, we were very careful. We had to go slow. We felt like it was wisdom for us to go slow. Yeah. We didn't say I love you for a long time. We didn't like say these things. We didn't go out too fast because, you know, being or like in my experience and she can tell her side of it as well. But like being in my experience was that there was just so many couples that went too fast and were like, oh, God told me I'm supposed to do this, so that they would date they would date for like 2 weeks and they'd break up and like, and I was like, oh, like, well,
you're getting prophetic words left and right, and suddenly you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, or like, you know, I knew that was another one of those things that you weren't supposed to do, is you weren't supposed to do prophetic words about like dating somebody or that sort of thing. But people would be like, oh, I had this dream, oh, I did this thing, and I heard this, like, the Lord say this thing, and then they would try to date somebody and it like wouldn't work out, and like I just saw that a lot, and I was like, well, I'm not even gonna ask, Lord, am I doing this or not? I was like, I'm just gonna go really slow and we're just gonna wait, and there's no like pressure, like we just need to gather more information. Like, do we even know? Like, sure, like the first, you know, Skype we had was awesome and like felt super wonderful and like all the life-giving, like, yeah, hoorah, endorphins for days and all that sort of thing. But I was like, okay, well, we don't have enough information. We don't actually know each other very well yet to know, like, do I love you? I was like, I have to love all of you. I can't just love the little bit that I know. I have to love all of you, you know? Mm-hmm. And so we tried to be,
we were very careful.
Yeah, we were very careful. We went really slow. And we, you know, we had to go about it that way just for our own heart safety and connection, you know? Because I just saw bad too many times.
And that was something that I had learned even more so with the course that I had done. So that course actually really helped prepare me for what the Lord had in meeting Michael, I think.
In what way? Like, what were the specifics of that? How do you feel like that prepares you for meeting?
Going slow, making sure I'm protecting his heart, my heart, and also just being able to be vulnerable and open and honest. With where I was at and what I have my expectations of, like, hey, I'm not just here to date for fun, you know. And we also did the hard questions quickly, like, okay, these are my deal breakers. What are your thoughts on these? You know, like, do you want kids? Are you willing to move countries? Like those sorts of questions. So, I mean, we were able to be open and vulnerable about those sorts of things pretty quickly on. Which was good.
So how long were you guys talking before you met each other in person?
So we kind of met through the winking messaging thing at like the end of the January. And then Michael ended up flying out in May. It was May 23rd, I think. 22nd.
22nd.
That we met in person for the first time. He flew to Dubai and met me.
And what was that like to meet in person after talking over Skype for so long?
You know, it felt like seeing an old friend. It really did, because we had built a good friendship. I mean, you were Skyping every week and chatting like on Messenger in between, but you're Skyping every week, talking about real stuff from February. So February, March, April, that's 5 months. Or 4 months. Actually genuinely getting to know each other. And I think one of the good things is like most of our relationship was long distance. We saw each other in person twice, no, 3 times, and then got married.
Wow.
Not 3 times as in 3 days, but 3 portions of time.
Yeah.
The rest of our relationship was long distance and comprised of talking. And if you know Michael, he does like to talk.
I was about to say, Michael is a processor, outward processor.
Yes, but it was really beneficial, and I think you grow in depth in your relationship a lot quicker because you don't have the distractions that you have if you're in person.
Maverick agrees.
Yeah.
He's like,
Maverick just told us
amen.
his side of it. He was like, yeah.
He's like, I was there for that.
Do you remember what some of the questions you were asking each other were during that, like, Skyping online dating season?
Well, yeah, like kids was one, you know, and like career and like regional geographical stuff is like, because like I'd seen that before too. Is like I had some friends that they were like, you know, hung out a lot and then fell in love and were super like in love with each other. But then they found out that one wanted to be in LA and one wanted to be in New York, and they felt like called there and like that. And they're like, okay, well then it's like, oh, then what do you do? You know, it's like, okay, you either change or you get your calling, or like, you know, and there's just kind of a lot of weird stuff. So we tried to like ask, like, hey, what are those kind of big questions?
So, like, as you got past those like deep questions, how do you keep the like conversation going? Like, you know what I mean? Like you said, you talked for like 5 months and then you dated for however long. Only saw each other 3 times. So how do you like keep that long distance conversation going without like?
Well, we started sharing.
out?
Yeah, we started sharing life with each other a little bit when we were actually officially dating, because we didn't officially date until after we met in person.
Right.
So we officially became like girlfriend boyfriend in like May when we met. It was like the next day.
23rd.
So, but then after that, you start sharing a little bit more of day-to-day life and stresses and like processing things that the Lord is doing in our lives and what it looks like. Like I was leading the groups that I was leading, so I'd talk to Michael about that. He was going through stuff and transitioning, moving to Boulder at the time. Yeah, pretty soon he was.
I was about to
move to Boulder, and so we had a lot that we just talked about with life.
I would say that was one of our, I would say that was never a problem for us.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of our like strengths, and one of the things that made it feel so good was that we weren't like, oh, okay, now what do we talk about?
You weren't like grasping for.
No,
Yeah, I don't think we ever.
It's been easy for Michael and I to talk.
Yeah, we never were like, what do we talk about now? We were like, honestly,
like just laying on the phone until you fall asleep.
We actually also. So this is funny too. Is like I remember the numbers pretty well, but 5 hours and 23 minutes was also a record long conversation.
Wow.
And we also started dating on 5/23.
Oh wow!
You know, and so it was like there's a bunch of fun things that were like we never talked less than like 2 hours. Honestly, that would have been an outlier. It was more like 3 hours was kind of like our minimum talking time. So it was like we didn't really ever like run out of things to say or feel awkward or like ask random stuff like, what's your favorite color? You know, we were just kind of like just going. We just kept on rambling.
That for me was a good indicator that this was a good relationship, because for me, unless I really know a person after a long time, I struggle to like just make conversation with random strangers. I'm not that outgoing person. I need to either have something to say, like in the setting of leading a meeting, or I will sit and wait and let someone else talk, and I'll get to know them through someone else and then be able to connect. Like you guys didn't recognize that. I didn't talk to you guys for over a year, probably.
It's okay. Beth and I didn't speak for over a year too, so it's a common thing.
It's not easy for me to just go and make conversation. And so being able to talk so easy and relaxed, in a relaxed way with Michael was a huge thing.
Michael, what do people in Kremlin, Colorado have to say when you say that you're dating someone in Dubai online?
Well, okay, one of my friends, in Kremlin? Okay, what did they say from Kremlin?
Well, it could be anybody, but how did your mom and dad feel about this?
Well, when they met, or like, they didn't like see you.
I saw your mom one time because Michael got food poisoning. Not
Okay,
long
go on.
after we started talking. It was before we'd even met in person, I think. And
Probably.
Michael was living by himself. And his mom came in while we were on Skype to bring him some soup or something, and he was so sick.
Oh.
But he still Skyped me, and his mom walked in and she was just like, "Hi," and then she left. She
Yeah,
brought you
true.
some food.
Oh yeah, that's funny. I do remember that. She was like, she goes, "Oh, your girlfriend is so beautiful." I was like, "We're not actually dating yet."
You're like, slow down, Mom.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Slow down. But I don't know. I mean, I didn't really care, I guess, what people thought. I didn't ask people. The only person that I did, or not the only person, but one of my best friends, like at that time that I talked to, he was born in South Africa, and I told him, I was like, "Hey, dude, like I met this girl from South Africa," and he in joking was like, "Marry her," you know, like he didn't say like that was his first thing ever. He just said, "Marry her," and I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever," like blah 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 blah. But I was like, you know, so that was the kind of person that could relate to it, because most people can't relate to like Dubai or South Africa very much. But he could, so that I did share that with him. But he was older.
Did your sister-in-law think it was pretty cool because, you know, the whole Bethel connection and all of that?
I don't. Well, everybody else, I didn't care whatever anybody. I didn't really care what she thought, because she thought it was cool. She's like, "Oh, at least you found your person." Like, we're not married yet. You know, and I was like, or just because I was like, I didn't want to deal. I didn't care what anybody else thought.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted this relationship for me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be happy in it, and I didn't want to like try to convince myself that it was good. I didn't want to like think like, oh well, you know, this person I really respect and trust thinks it's good for me, so I'm gonna be in it. I just was like, how do I feel about this relationship? And I didn't shut people out, but I didn't super invite them in either, because you know, I mean, there's Dubai, there's online, and there's South Africa, you know.
I think we both worked really hard at protecting the pressure-freeness of it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, to start with especially, but even as we went along, you know.
Yeah.
So Michael had come here in the May, and I came out that September to visit, and that's when I met his family for the first time. And
how long would you guys stay? Like, so when you went to Dubai, when you came here, how long did you stay?
I went to Dubai for 2 weeks. You came for 3 weeks, and then I think I was only like 10 days going in there February.
Yeah, so the following February he came back out to Dubai and proposed.
Yeah.
But we'd already talked the previous September, October when I was here about what our next steps might be.
We may have both bought something on Black Friday that was very marriage related.
Oh, nice.
That's so funny.
Was there a specific moment or a specific time that you remember that you knew, like, okay, I do want to marry this person?
As soon as I felt the freedom to tell him I loved him, I was like, this is it. We're in for the long haul. And then he didn't freak out that we started talking about marriage almost straight away. So it was all in that same September-October trip. So I was here for quite some time, 3 weeks. And it was just like natural progression of where we were headed. And we're also at that in September. I was 31 at least. No. Yes. I was 31. And it was just like, we've got time to waste.
Well, there's no reason to. Like, we had already, all the big questions we had already talked about. We were very comfortable with each other. And I remember thinking, I was like, most of marriage is going to be this, where we're like talking to each other. It's not going to be like, going back to the coaching thing, because if you coach a game or whatever, it's only like during that sport or during that time, and like there's that little bit of time, or even if you like go, I don't know. My family does a lot of rafting, so it's like if we go rafting, it's like it's not actually that often that you go rafting.
Mm-hmm. It's the day-to-day
it's that
thing that you need to be able to be on the same page with, and
yeah.
we were.
Yeah, and that part I knew was good, and so I was like, okay, the other things we'll be able to figure out. You know, if we do go rafting, which we did, and it was fun, and it still is fun, and you know those sorts of things. Like we'll be able to do the other fun stuff, but that'll be the adding on, not the making of.
Yeah.
What advice or what wisdom would you have for somebody who is looking for a spouse?
She's asking for a friend.
Yeah.
No, that's a good.
This isn't a question for me at all.
Okay, so the advice that I've given to like my friends, you know, after having been married or whatever for a little bit was, as like, don't worry about trying to like become a good husband-esque person or like a wife-esque person. Probably is like you'll figure that out when you are married with what your spouse actually values. You'll know what that is. Like the only way to know that is to be married, and then you'll find out how to love on them in that way. Because I remember for like a long time trying to get my character to be good and trying to like get this to be like okay, like everybody's like, oh, once you're good, then the Lord will hook you up with your lady. And I was like, man, I must really suck. I was like, it was just like there's that game of like, is my character not good? Am I like I think I've been good for a long. Yeah, what's wrong with me is like, okay, if that's how the formula works, then surely I must be messed up. And I don't think I was. I just think that, or like, and also the stuff that like Lorraine values or how I can love on Lorraine. Of all the ways that I prepared, like that wasn't one of. There wasn't that. Those didn't come. It was only after being married that I was able to like be that person or do those things that love on you.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even really know what those things are. You think you know yourself, and then you marry somebody, and you're like, oh wait, this is what I actually need. I thought I needed this, but this is what I need. You know.
I think that like there's like that slow and gradual friction of it's like. You know, you don't know what that is until you're actually around for somebody long enough to where that actually becomes like hot enough of a topic to like, hey, let's talk about that. You know, and so trying to figure that out beforehand is like not really all that practical or real. I just think just be who you. Or yeah, I guess here the advice would be just be who you are, be true to who yourself. And just say yes to whatever invitation God has for you, for that purpose alone, not for like, oh, I'm gonna do this so that I can get my spouse. I'm gonna say yes to the Lord so that then He can bring me this person.
Yeah, I think for me, like the only kind of preparation I would say maybe do is learn how to do relationship well, and that's not necessarily just a romantic relationship, but know how to be vulnerable safely, but how to be vulnerable and just be real with who you are. Because if you want a person who's going to love you for who you really are, and if they aren't able to ever see that when you're in the dating zone, then it's going to fall up. They're not going to fall in love with who you really are, and then you're going to have this pressure to be who you're not throughout being married. So I would just say, like, learn how to do relationship well outside of marriage. Friendships, like sibling relationships, parental relationships, and be brave enough to be real and vulnerable.
This is my favorite way to record podcasts, though, when life is just happening and you're like, you know what, this is real. This is how life is. You're not in a studio all the time. You're like,
yeah, that's true.
In your house and the kids are around.
Welcome to our chaos.
Yeah. What do you think? So think back to yourselves 10 years ago.
Carry the tube.
Yeah, do the quick math. Yep. What do you think you 10 years ago would be surprised to know about your life now?
That I live in a really cold place.
Wait, how long have you guys been married?
7 years in June.
Okay, so 10
So
years
you wouldn't
is
have even
pre-marriage.
met
We
10
didn't,
years ago.
No.
We didn't know
Okay.
each other existed until.
We met
What year is
when
it?
I was
2025?
30.
Oh my gosh.
and I was 20. We would have been 28 then, so it was 2 years prior to us meeting.
Oh my gosh, 10 years ago. That's wild.
Would you be surprised that this is your life, Lorraine, after like not looking, not, you know, really pursuing?
I mean, I was hopeful
Yeah.
to be married and have kids. I wanted that. I was starting to think by the time I hit 30 that I was like, okay, well, what would adoption look like? Because Dubai's a little tricky with single moms and adoption and all of that. But I was like, well, what would that look like? I didn't want to go back to South Africa. I was really happy in Dubai. But, I mean, I think I'd be surprised, but I hoped for it.
Yeah.
But we have 2 amazing kids. So.
They're pretty awesome.
Sorry, I do love when a thought hits Michael's brain and you can see it.
Well, it's funny. So 10 years ago, I was working on a cruise ship, and I remember, I like tall buildings because, like, being from Kremling, the tallest building here is like 3 stories, and it's like somebody's house. You know, it's not like a tall building; it's like a house. So I remember, it being in the thing. I knew I was like, hey, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity to be on this cruise ship and do all this stuff. And I remember being in Shanghai, as they said, but Shanghai, and I was in the Jinmao Tower, and I remember like there's all these buildings like on our cruise. It was a 180-day cruise, so it was like 6 months around the world in 6 months or 180 days. So it was a pretty cool gig, to be honest.
Sorry, Beth's just making Maverick laugh so hard.
Well, it was a really cool opportunity to go on this cruise and to work and to go all these different places. And everywhere when I got a chance to go see like a tall building, I definitely did it. And I wanted to go see the cool stuff because I just thought it was amazing that I'd seen God's beautiful, you know, artwork with mountains and rivers and like cool snow-capped awesomeness, but I had not really seen like man-made coolness. So I was like, let me see something tall building. Like, this is amazing. And anyway, I was in the Jinmao Tower, and I remember like they had like a little replica thing, like it was like the top 20 buildings in the world. It was top 10 or top 20 or something like that. And it said like where they all were, and I was like, oh cool, like I'm going there, and I'm gonna see that one, and I see that one, I'm gonna go here, when I see this one, I'm gonna go there. And so I was kind of scoping out all these places. I was like, this is amazing. And then and there was like 4 of them were in Shanghai, and I got to see those there, which was cool. But the number 1 tallest building in the world is the Burj Khalifa, and it's in Dubai. And when I saw that, I was like, oh man, I'm never gonna get to go there. I was like, this is because our cruise doesn't go there. I'm not gonna get to go there. I was like, man, that'd be cool to see that one. That'd be super awesome. And then it turns out I ended up not too long later living in Dubai for 3.5 years.
We had high tea at the top of.
Oh, that was awesome.
my gosh.
That was so sweet.
We had tea in the.
Oh my gosh! So like a
moment.
yeah, like
That is the Lord.
that was I was like, because I was like that was important. I was like that was like a desire of my heart. I was like I would love to see the tallest building in the world.
Yeah.
And then we were on for my birthday.
To be inside it.
It was like the 125th floor, I want to say.
Wow.
It was like high tea or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked down, like you go to
And
the
that was
wall,
like
you look
the
down.
3rd or 4th time we'd been in that.
Yeah, I was like, then it never got old. Every time you see the Durberg stuff, I was like, oh, this is awesome for like 3 years. I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
But looking down, you know, the like huge buildings are like this tiny, and then like there's like the fountain show is like super incredible. It's a lovely fountain show that they have in the marina, the mall, and it just looked so small. It was hilarious to see it. So I was like, so that was definitely a big surprise because 10 years ago I was like, well, I'm never gonna get to go there. Dang it.
Yeah.
How
I just
cool.
think, looking back to look forward, I don't think I could have foreseen or thought about everything we've had to overcome.
And still overcoming.
In the last 10 years. Like from Michael, us entering this relationship, which is an amazing, exciting adventure. We got married exactly, a few days after our 1-year dating anniversary. But to go from that to Michael moving countries, to losing his brother, to then going through the whole green card process, through COVID, to moving countries again while pregnant.
Wow.
Getting COVID, Liberty coming early, transitioning to a new country. And for Michael, for a lot of it, he lived here, but coming back was almost like coming back to a new country post-COVID.
Yeah, I was like, this is not the place I left. I was born here. What happened?
Culture shock is
it was a thing.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that, being that he was from here, but life was just so different post-COVID that it was just a huge transition. And we launched into new parents. And then I had a miscarriage, and then Maverick got conceived, and we've had him. He came early. We've gone in and out of jobs and life and loss and things we dreamed of while we were in Dubai, like, oh, we're going to get this and we're going to do that and we're going to be able to buy a house. Nope. So we've overcome a lot. But the Lord has been faithful. Not, like I said before, not always the way we wanted him to be. But we are still standing. So
yeah. How do you think you have seen God in those things that you didn't expect, or like the things that you've had to overcome? Where have you seen him the most?
That's a hard question to answer.
Well, okay. I think when it comes, like at least with my dreams and our dreams, I think there's definitely going to be some leadership roles that are needed to be able to thrive in those roles, or to thrive in that dream and not let the dream kill you, kind of a thing. And in a lot of ways, like I think of David and his journey to leadership was weird and bizarre. You know, he had a crazy king trying to kill him, and all the resources involved. Oh, shout out to Steve Tuck. But you know, all the resource, like I can't imagine having somebody like a king of a nation or a ruler of a nation trying to kill you with all the resources, you know, that they have at their disposal to do that. And then being rejected by his king, and then even going over to being rejected in his own town, or that, I can't remember what the name of it was, but there was a town in Israel, so he had to go to the Philistine country, and then he was, you know, rejected over there. Like he couldn't handle it. His own people wanted to kill him, so he had to go to the Philistine country. And even then, they were like, came to war with Israel, and he's like, I'm gonna fight for you guys. And like, no, you can't do that either. Like there was just a lot of rejection for him, and disappointment, and overcoming those sorts of things. Or like his own people wanted to stone him after they lost. I think it was Ziklag, where they lost their wives and their children, and then they wanted to stone him, and he had to strengthen himself in the Lord, you know. And I just feel like you know, there's a lot of like, he, in a really bizarre way, not the way that you'd want to be like trained to be a leader. He had to be trained to be a leader, and that kind of feels like our story right now. Is it's like, this is not what leadership, or you know, like we have a dream, like we want to like lead businesses and do stuff, and like, you know, be Jesus-y entrepreneurs and all that sort of stuff. And it's like we have these dreams, but it's like, okay, you don't want to go through the process, or I would not. I'm in it, and I'm like, this is not how I want to go through it. You know, but I'm like, but is it the better thing to do? Is like, is it good to learn how to depend on God above all else? Like when things don't go well, if you can learn how to do it when things aren't going well, then when things do go well, it'll be easier, or like, I don't know if qualifies is right. It'll enable you to say yes when things are riding on the line, and you still have to say yes when God, all the favor that God just gave you, He's asking you to put it at risk again, and you still have to say yes again. So I think that's kind of where I feel like what we're learning is like, how do we say yes to the Lord no matter what kind of a deal, you know?
Like even if he asks us to walk into nothingness, as in like lack or whatever, and I mean, he will always sustain us, but even if he's asking, that's a risky thing to do. It's like, okay, you're asking me to walk into this thing where we don't have a job and we don't have an income, and we still have to trust you? Right. Like, will we say yes?
Or he wants to lead me into tech. Okay, so this is back to romantic stuff. Okay, so wait, can I say my cousin's name?
you want?
You can say whatever you want.
All right, so Kelsey Hargadine, who was on this.
Yes, she was
earlier.
on our podcast a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so I remember her. I was actually living with her and my cousin. Well, my cousin is Thad, but I consider Kelsey Hargadine my cousin as well.
We're all
but,
family.
yeah,
This whole town is almost a Hargadine.
Yes, that's true.
not as much now as it was, but anyway, I remember telling, or like, the list. Coming back to the lists is one of the things that I needed. Is I was like, hey, I need somebody who's good at tech because I'm so bad at it, and I need somebody who knows or can help with that because it's such a pivotal, important thing that I was like, hey, I need help with this. I need somebody who's strong there because I'm just super bad at it. And that was my only skill set that was on my list, and it came off several times. But I remember talking about that with Kelsey Hargadine, and she knows about it.
I am not a tech genius by any means, but I think
No,
I'm pretty good.
you're pretty darn good. I mean, I'm saying you're pretty darn good. But anyway, that was so. All that to say is tech was I was allergic to it or something, And then and now the Lord's called me into tech, and I'm like, oh gosh, why? I'm just so bad. I'm just not very good at it. But I felt that it was the Lord, and so I was like, okay, here I go into this tech adventure that I'm still not confident in it. And I've been doing it for a little bit, and I'm not confident at all. But I'm trying to learn how to do it, and it's just hard. It's just hard. And I say that a lot to Lorraine about how hard it is because I'm I don't know what's going on, but I'm learning and growing. But I can if it wasn't for the Lord, I would never got in, and if it wasn't for the Lord, I wouldn't still be in it, So, well, oh shoot, I forgot what the question was.
It was how you've seen the Lord the most clearly, but I think you're answering it the things that you didn't expect that you would have to learn.
Yeah.
In that preparation, you have the dream and you think you know how you're going to get there, but then it takes this long way, and you're this was not ever part of it.
Right.
But it is that full circle thing where God will bring something back 10 years later that you're oh, I thought I was never going to get to do this, but then there's a lot of pain and preparation and learning and failing in between having that dream from the Lord and seeing it fulfilled, which people don't always talk about or think about.
Right.
Yeah, it's that second half of Hebrews 11 that gets you.
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen examples of that sort of thing throughout our marriage. We got notice the day before our anniversary in Dubai that we were finally getting our green card interview. And then I was 6 weeks pregnant with Liberty, and her whole story was amazing. We saw the hand of the Lord in that. We thought, okay, well, we're ready to have kids. Let's do this. And it's going to happen. And it didn't for 6 months, and I ended up having to have surgery, and then it seemed like it might be even harder to get pregnant, and it actually wasn't long after that surgery that I did get pregnant. Thankful to the doctor and the surgeon, because she was extremely encouraging. I loved her to bits, and I was really sad that she didn't deliver Liberty. But yeah, so we just saw the Lord's hand in that, even with her conception, and she was a dream from when I was a little girl. I always wanted to be a mom. So to be able to have that dream fulfilled, and then again with Maverick, it's just, we've got to, I think the biggest thing where we see the Lord is when we just look back and remember. It's really hard sometimes to see the Lord in the moment. So.
Sure.
Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah. Actually, a fun side story, and it is funny, but it's also kind of, I just think it's a cool story, is when I was at that workshop when I was, for my 30th birthday. My birthday was in July, and this was in the beginning of August. One of the last exercises they had us do was to have a soaking time with the Lord with worship, and then to write a letter. Ask the Lord to write a letter to you about your spouse.
Wow.
And I did, and I wrote this long letter, and then I closed the book and I put it away. I didn't want to look at it, read it, or anything. It wasn't even until after we were married, or were we engaged?
It was after we were married.
It was after we were married that I showed the letter. I went back, I pulled it out, and I showed it to Michael, and we read through it together. So that's where I said we were protecting the pressure-freeness of it, of our relationship, because I didn't want to be like, this is him. But when we read it after we were married, it was totally him, but it talked about like, oh, he will have a David's heart, and he'll be like David. And immediately when you think of David, you're like, oh, he's going to be in a praise and worship band, and he's going to play an instrument and be able to sing, which was like, that's on my list. But Michael doesn't play an instrument.
Not in like 20 years.
And he doesn't sing on any worship teams.
Definitely not going to happen.
But he does have a worshiper heart. But when he's talking about, he thinks about David going through all those processes of being trained in leadership, it was reminding me of that letter and being like, well, like his story, which is now our story, is very close to like David in the processes that we have to go through and how messy it is and how much struggle there is for fulfilling something that should be just like, Lord, you promised this, let's do it. No, like, what was David, like 12 or 13 when he was like, oh, I'm going to be king? And how long did that take? You know, and what did he have to go through to get there? So, and I'm sure there were times where David was like, oh, you suck. I mean, that's what the whole Psalms is, or half the Psalms are about that. So
how could you?
But yeah, there was one line and there was like, make room for his process.
Yeah.
There was one line in the letter at the end.
Be gracious to him in
gracious
his
for
process. And I'm like, that's for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. Like, because you think about like David, well, there's a lot of people that can be like David and worship part and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people that fit that bill in various ways, like Lorraine was saying. But when she read that line, I was like, that was me. Like that was me that God was talking about when, because I definitely, as Beth said, will process a lot.
So looking back, like that's another example where it's like we can see the Lord's hand in even just our relationship from the very beginning.
Wow.
So.
That's so cool. I'm just on the verge of tears over here. That was really beautiful.
I not as cool of a story, but I also had so I did the Single Life Workshop too, and I got one of those things
Many years before,
and I got one of those lists where like this, your wife should look like this or whatever, and it was one of those things that I also had to like throw away or whatever, because I was like, you have it, you throw it away, you have it, you get it away, you refine it, you throw it away again, you burn it, all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, so I guess I was like, she had that, I was like, man, I wish I would have kept that, because then.
Do you remember any of it?
No, I don't. I was so over it. I was over it because, anyway, long story short, I was just over that whole thing. But I wish I would have. That one thing I wish I would have kept.
One fun thing that I've remembered, though, is, I was able to travel a fair amount when I lived in Dubai, because you get a paid ticket different places.
Oh, how nice.
Once a year as part of your work thing. But I was able to travel, and something I started to do is everyone gets souvenirs, right? And I didn't want a fridge full of magnets. So I started buying jewelry. So every time I'd go to a country, I would buy a specific piece of jewelry, like whether it's earrings or, which is cool because Beth gave me some earrings from Uganda. And she doesn't even know that story.
I didn't know that
But
story.
I would buy from every place I visit. So I've got like something from Hungary, something from Bulgaria, and then Africa and America. Canada. So I just have little pieces everywhere I've traveled. And then after we got married, Michael gives me this bag full of jewelry. Like beaded jewelry, necklaces, bracelets. And every place he had been to, he had bought something for his future wife. Like a piece of jewelry for his future wife.
How freaking cute.
That's going to make me cry.
So I still have that. I mean,
my gosh.
as soon as Maverick stops yanking everything, I'll start being able to wear more stuff.
We went on a date, thank you Jesus, 4 days ago,
Saturday.
on this weekend, and she wore her earrings that I got in Juarez, Mexico, which was scary because that was like the murder capital of the world, and I was afraid I was going to die. Don't watch Sicario before you go to Juarez, I'll tell you that right now. But anyway, actually Juarez is much better now, but at that time it was pretty scary, and it was cool that she still has those earrings
Yeah.
and she wore them.
I have everything. So
Is all the jewelry something that you would have picked out for yourself?
most of it, yes. There's a couple of things like the Lord of the Rings ring necklace. It's not something I
From
probably would.
Toledo, Spain, by the way.
It's not
Toledo.
something
that's
I would have
pretty
got
epic.
for
I
myself.
know, right? Yes, like come on.
It's not something I would have got for myself, but they're special because he gave them to me. So I
Well-
might not ever wear them, but I'm not going to ever get rid of them.
Well, I didn't know if she was gonna be a nerd like me, or not, or because I'm like Lord of the Rings, like yeah, like this is cool. We're in Spain, like fun.
Yeah.
But I was like, so I did try to get some like different stuff, which is why some of it doesn't fit very good, or isn't suited well to her. Because I was like, is she a nerd? I don't know. But if she does this, like,
Gonna
does she
cover
like
all the
right?
bases.
Yeah, I was like, does she like this? I don't know. Like, I don't know. So I have
It
to
was
just.
it was like, for me, that was like a wink from the Lord that he was preparing Michael with this idea of something that I had started doing. Like every country. And Michael has traveled a lot, and he has been to a lot of different places. So, like, there's stuff there from Mexico, from Costa Rica, from Spain. So, like, all over the world. So, wow.
I think every continent except for Antarctica. Although I did go to Antarctica, they just didn't have as much jewelry there.
Ah, dang it.
The souvenir shops are a
Bought
little
some ice
scarce.
jewelry, but it was gone by the time you got home.
Yeah. It made it halfway through the next day, and then it just melted.
Wow, that's so cool. What would each of you do if you came home and you found a penguin in your freezer?
Penguin in my freezer?
I would wonder if we could eat it. Like, I mean, is it dead? It's a dead one.
I mean, I guess it's up to you. I was envisioning it being alive, yet rather
Oh,
frosty.
oh,
but
oh.
He'd be small, though.
Yeah.
yeah,
Small penguin.
Penguin in my
a freezer-sized
A
penguin.
gentoo penguin, maybe. Well, if it's still alive, then I'm not going to eat it. But if it was dead, I would be
Would
like...
you keep it as a pet?
Oh, that would be sweet.
A penguin?
I would
I mean,
love
it would survive
a
here
penguin?
in Kremlin, I think.
Well, it would survive 6 months a year. Then we'd have to reverse snowbird, hey?
I mean, I'd probably be open to keeping it as a pet.
penguin
but
would
I'd
be
be
cool.
like, who is going to clean up after this?
Yes,
I feel
that's
like that would-
exactly what I expected.
I
Do
would...
penguins poop?
Of
Yes.
course.
They're probably
They're an
messy
animal.
Oh, is it like bird poop? So interesting. Okay.
Well,
How-
okay, so was that your final answer?
Yeah.
You would wonder who's going to take care of it, and Michael would be like, let's keep it or
Yeah.
eat it.
Well, if it's dead, I would eat it. Because, I
Okay.
mean, I'm
Do
open to
people
eat...
eat penguins?
I don't know, but
Well, Michael would.
I would eat it. I mean, like,
Yeah.
we gotta at least try. You
Like,
gotta
does
try
it
everything
taste like
once.
chicken?
Maybe it does. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, if it was edible, I would do that thing. If it was take care of, I would do that because it would be fun to have a penguin. I mean, like, I think we could arrange. We would come up with a
Could
way.
you see Liberty walking around with her pet penguin?
I could
Oh
see it.
gosh, yeah, taking your penguin to school day.
Yes.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
that'd be brilliant.
What would we do with it in the
But
summer?
in the winter, man, you could like build like cool igloos and little slides, and that thing could like slide around the igloo and
Lorraine is
stuff.
thinking logistically here.
What would
Yes.
we do in the summer?
Yeah, that's why I said reverse snowbird, which we won't do. But I don't know what we
You
do.
could just
We could
eat
do
it
a
this
freezer.
summer.
We could just
Oh,
get a giant.
gosh.
What?
We could just eat it in the summer.
Oh, we
Keep
get
it as a pet and then slaughter it? My gosh, Beth.
I mean,
dark.
that's ranch life, right?
Yes, yeah.
Hashtag sorry chickens. No, I don't know. That'd be fun.
Okay.
Okay.
Next question.
How do you go about eating a muffin?
What's the correct way to eat a muffin?
You peel the paper and then you bite from the side.
What if it's a large muffin?
Then I usually eat the edges, the muffin top edges first, and then peel the paper.
I don't eat a lot of muffins,
One
but
bite.
yeah, I would just. that was a nice
Would
Would
little
you take
gesture.
the paper off first?
Oh yeah, no, you gotta get.
I think
you gotta
you would
get rid of the
probably
paper.
hold the paper,
okay,
eat
so
the
you-
whole top off, then peel it and put the rest
No,
in.
you gotta peel the
Wow.
like you peel the half of it because you gotta hold on to
interesting.
something.
Oh, yeah, like
you
a
peel the
cupcake.
half off and then you just do that. Just hammer time.
Interesting. How would you eat a muffin, Beth?
I think I would do kind of like Michael said, like peel the paper halfway, and then maybe like eat, how a muffin, like the
You know
edge.
how a
I would
muffin
eat
top-
the edge
yeah.
top thing first, and then I would have
Because
the
that's
bottom.
usually kind of crunchy, which is really nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
How do you eat a muffin?
Not at all like that. I would always peel the entire paper off,
Okay.
flip the muffin upside down, eat the bottom of the muffin because that's not the best part, and then I would save the top for last. I did this
Oh.
yesterday, actually.
That is
In
so
that
Do you,
exact
what do you
order.
do with like butter? Like there's butter on the top and there's stuff like you gotta flip it upside down. You got butter all over your fingers. What are you gonna do with
Do
You
you
know,
put butter on your
sacrifices
muffins?
have to be made.
that? Okay.
Like banana muffins.
That's
yeah.
why I do
Oh,
half
yeah.
That's why I do half of it first, is because like you don't want to get like if there's whatever on it. You don't want to get that stuff on it. You're going to be all sticky, you know? And it's like, you got to do half.
But it's similar to a cupcake. Like, I would take the bottom off the cupcake and put it on the top and make a sandwich.
Bottom
With
off
the frosting.
With the frosting in the middle. Like an ice cream sandwich, but cupcake. Yeah.
Cupcake sandwich.
Yeah.
All right.
Michael's life has been changed now.
I'm just looking, I'm like, how do we test this?
We need to
Beth,
test the
what did you
theory.
make?
Yeah, what do you
I am
have you
making
baked?
cupcakes this
Oh,
week.
Oh, perfect. Give it a
Ice
try.
cream was the next one.
Ice cream?
Mhm.
Oh, in your opinion, what is the best flavor of ice cream?
Mint chocolate chip.
Yes! Yes. You are correct.
No.
Whatever, Beth.
I don't even like chocolate chips.
I'm gonna guess Michael's is chocolate chip cookie dough.
That was going to be my guess, too.
Yeah.
Or
I
like
mean,
birthday cake.
Oh.
Cookie
I do
dough
like
is
birthday
Caden's favorite, so I feel like it's Michael's favorite.
Yeah, cookie dough is hard to pass up. If you see that in a store, whether it's like Cold Stone
but
or
don't
whatever.
get the Kroger cookie dough. It's not good.
I don't know, man.
To
When
be
it comes to
fair-
cookie dough, I feel like it's pretty hard to mess it up.
To be
Okay,
fair,
you
any
go ahead
ice
and try.
cream is Michael's jam.
I
so-
do.
True.
I do love ice cream.
I want
Yeah,
you to go try the Kroger brand chocolate chip cookie dough, and that cookie dough is not good in there.
Really?
You want him to go try the worst one?
Yeah. I want him
Okay.
to tell me that it's bad.
I'll probably enjoy it, to be honest.
It's always on sale, that's why I buy it, and then I realize how bad the cookie dough is. It like disintegrates in your mouth.
Weird.
Oh, it's like sugary, just.
Yeah, it's weird.
Wow.
What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Chocolate chip cookie dough, even
Oh.
though I hate chocolate chips.
How odd.
Well,
I
because
don't know.
there's not an ice cream that comes with just cookie dough. Like if it's cookie dough, it's gotta have
Yeah,
chocolate
with
chips in it
chips.
too. It's kind of like I think it's the ice cream's way of trying to like get more people. It's like we have
Yeah.
chocolate chips and we have cookie dough, and they throw
Yeah.
it together.
Or anything Oreo, like Oreo McFlurry, Oreo.
Oreo McFlurry's
What's
brilliant.
the thing?
Blizzard.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
blizzards. Those cookie dough blizzards are
Yeah.
brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think it's funny that Lorraine and I said mint chocolate chip, and you were like, never. And then we're like, chocolate chip cookie dough. You're like, yeah.
I
That's
just
the
think
one.
mint
Well,
is
there-
weird.
Well, the chocolate chip is so minute of the chocolate chip
True.
cookie dough experience.
True. Because you could eat the vanilla ice cream around it and it covers up the chocolate chip part.
But what's not the case though with the mint chocolate chip, you got mint as the ice cream, and then you got the chocolate chip
Yeah,
with
who
bits in there.
enjoys mint?
Okay,
Yeah, why
but
would
here's
you
the
do
real
that to
question.
yourself? Why would you do that to yourself?
Mint chocolate chip with the green base or the white base?
It's got to be green.
I don't think I've really tried any that's white.
Oh. I forget what the brand is, but there's one where the base is white and it's incredible.
Oh.
It's so good. I'll have to bring
I
you some.
have tasted one which is almost like a vanilla ice cream, and the chocolate chip itself is minty chocolate.
Ooh,
But,
that sounds good.
but yeah, side note, fun thing that you should probably ask your spouse before you get married, like when you're engaged, how much do you eat?
Oh,
Why is this an important question to ask?
this is important.
My husband starved for the first
Not starved, just went to bed hungry.
the first
very
month
hungry.
of our marriage.
No, it was only like a
You
week
find him
or
late
two.
night in the kitchen just eating cereal.
No, he
Gotta
was very
survive.
gracious. He did not do that, but
Well, it was funny. Wait, do you want to tell the story?
Yeah,
you gotta
I-
go for it. It'd be funnier from you.
so I was used to cooking for myself, and I would make enough that would last 2 or 3 days, portion wise. So I was like, okay, I know Michael eats. I think he eats a lot. So like, I'll double. So I doubled what I normally made, and then I was like, there's gonna be leftovers for tomorrow. And Michael was like, really?
You're
And your
envisioning
story?
anything being left?
Your story?
Well, sure. On it. So what was going on in my brain? I saw the quantity of food that was very scarce, and she's like, "This will be like 2 or 3 days," and I was like, "Food here must be so much more nutrient, like
Oh my
full."
God.
I was like, "I like must when I eat this, it
It's
must
like
like
lemon
not
spread.
be."
It just fills
Yeah,
you up right
exactly.
away.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I don't know how this is gonna work out, but like, there just must be a lot more nutrients over here because where I'm from, that's not gonna fill me at all. I could eat the whole thing, and that would be just me for the one day. But she was like convinced, like, hey,
There'll
this
be
is gonna be
leftovers
2 or 3 days.
tonight and tomorrow.
And I was like, what? And then like she divvied it up, and it was like this should be for her, and this should be for me. Should give me a little bit more. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty small, but there must be. I'll be full. Like this is gonna be hard. And then I try it, and I was like, okay. I was like, it must like be a delayed thing. Like I must be
Oh my
like,
gosh.
when I like couldn't figure it out. I was like, it
You
must
did not
be
say
different.
A thing to me for
No,
ages.
well, it was like it must be different than what I think because she's so convinced. Like this is
Mm.
gonna like be filling for like a while, and I'm like, okay. And then finally I was like, okay, like after a week, I was like, okay, food in America is the same as this. It's like if you don't eat very much, it doesn't fill you up.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, that concept is still true here.
Like, I have come to the conclusion
Yeah, like
that I am
after
not
scientific
eating enough food.
research and
And
empirical
he eventually
evidence.
told me, I'm going to bed hungry.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm going to bed hungry. I was hoping it would like kick in later, you know, like some of those like delayed.
The protein, which is really
Yeah, like
come
something
through.
would come through for me in the end, and I wake up like starving. I'm like, okay, this is not how this works.
Oh my gosh.
So
Know how much your spouse eats before you get married.
There we go.
If you are the primary cooking person.
And I assume you're the primary cook in this relationship.
I am. Michael makes a really mean Thai dish.
Ooh.
And he makes really, really good eggs. And steak. But
But
I am the primary cook.
some of the meats I can do meats okay, and rice.
Yes.
Other than that,
I can
I'm
cook
in the
rice.
woods.
Michael can cook rice.
Especially at altitude, it's really hard to get it.
Well, this is
correct.
why I bought a rice cooker.
Yeah.
Oh, my rice cooker is the best thing that ever lived.
Does it live?
That ever doesn't live.
Oh, whoa.
Well, because
ever
my
helped you
previous
live?
one died.
Has a life of its own. Okay.
Okay.
3,
One.
2,
One. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hmm.